The first light of dawn filtered softly through the curtains of Sarah Bennett's modest suburban home. The streets were quiet, lined with oak trees swaying gently in the early morning breeze, and a few neighbors could be seen jogging or walking their dogs. It was a Sunday, a day Sarah usually cherished for its calm, a day when the worries of work and errands could be set aside. But even in this serene neighborhood, there was an unspoken tension that Sarah couldn't shake. Inside, 3-year-old Emma Bennett sat cross-legged on the living room rug, carefully stacking her colorful plastic blocks. She hummed a little tune, completely absorbed in her game. Her curly brown hair bounced lightly as she reached for another block, the innocent concentration on her tiny face making Sarah smile. There was a sweetness in watching her child at play, a reminder of why mornings like this were precious. Sarah moved quietly to the kitchen, pouring herself a cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of pancakes she had left on the stove from breakfast. For a moment, she allowed herself a sigh of contentment, savoring the rare peace before the demands of the day fully began. Outside, the neighborhood seemed almost idyllic, a picture-perfect scene of suburban life. Children's laughter could be heard faintly in the distance, mixed with the occasional bark of a dog or the hum of a passing car. But as Sarah sipped her coffee, a subtle unease crept into her thoughts. There had been whispers of recent break-ins in nearby streets, neighbors gossiping about missing valuables, and suspicious people wandering at odd hours. The police had increased patrols, and a small layer of fear had begun to settle quietly over the community. Sarah shook her head, trying to dismiss the thoughts. "It's probably nothing," she murmured to herself. After all, she had lived here for 5 years, and nothing serious had ever touched her little family, until now, perhaps. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a shadow flicker across the living room floor. She glanced over at Emma, who seemed perfectly absorbed in her block tower, oblivious to anything else. Probably just the morning light, Sarah told herself, but her heart skipped a beat. Something about the movement felt off. Her gaze then fell on Rex, the family's police dog, who had been lounging near the couch. The German shepherd's ears twitched, and his large brown eyes locked onto Emma with an intensity that made Sarah pause. Rex was trained, disciplined, and loyal. His instincts had saved countless situations before, but she had never seen him focus so sharply on something so small. Sarah laughed nervously, trying to ease the tension rising in her chest. "He's probably imagining things," she said aloud. Emma, meanwhile, seemed unbothered, her tiny hands still carefully placing one block on top of another. Then, in a clear, deliberate voice, she said, "Help him." Sarah froze, her coffee halfway to her lips. The words were unusual. Emma rarely spoke in complete sentences at 3, and this phrase made no immediate sense. "Help who, sweetheart?" Sarah asked, her voice softer than she intended. Emma didn't respond, simply looking at Rex, her wide brown eyes unblinking, her small fingers pointing toward the front door, as if she could sense something Sarah could not. Rex stood slowly, muscles coiling with alertness. He let out a low, warning growl, one that seemed entirely out of context in the quiet morning. Sarah's pulse quickened. "Emma, stay right here," she said, her voice wavering slightly. She set her coffee down, moving closer to the child while keeping an eye on the dog. There was an unmistakable tension in the air, a silent alarm that something or someone was present that didn't belong. Across the street, the early morning calm masked a lurking danger. A shadowed figure moved cautiously between the parked cars, scanning the quiet homes. The intruder's movements were deliberate but hesitant, each step measured, as though he were weighing the risk of discovery. He didn't yet know that inside one of these homes, a small girl and a highly trained dog were about to thwart his plans in a way he couldn't have imagined. Inside the house, Sarah tried to steady her breathing. She had faced emergencies before, minor ones, like plumbing issues or small neighborhood scuffles, but nothing that triggered the primal protective instincts she felt now. Rex's growl grew louder, a low rumble that resonated through the floor, echoing Sarah's own rising tension. Emma, however, seemed eerily calm, her small body stiff, eyes fixed on the front door. "Go away," she murmured softly, almost to herself. The combination of a 3-year-old's words and a trained Chi-9's instinct created a surreal but undeniable warning. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. She moved to the door, peering through the peephole. The street appeared empty, bathed in the soft morning glow. Nothing seemed amiss, yet the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. The quiet suburban neighborhood, so familiar and safe, suddenly felt fragile, like the calm surface of a pond hiding a whirlpool beneath. Rex continued to growl, pacing slightly, eyes never leaving the door. Sarah's mind raced, trying to rationalize the situation. Maybe it's a delivery man, she thought, though even as the thought crossed her mind, she felt the impossibility of it. Emma, sensing the tension, hugged her stuffed bunny tightly. The toddler's innocence and sharp awareness created a stark contrast, highlighting the extraordinary bond she shared with the dog. Minutes stretched. Each sound, the distant hum of a car, the flutter of leaves, the faint creak of a branch felt amplified. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she dialed 911, unsure if she was overreacting or anticipating an unseen threat. Emma continued to whisper, "Help him," repeating the phrase with a clarity that sent chills down Sarah's spine. The toddler's voice was small but unwavering, a beacon of alertness that seemed to pierce the morning haze. Then Rex barked sharply, louder this time, his body rigid, ears forward, tail stiff. Sarah's heart jumped. Something was definitely there, something that her rational mind couldn't yet see. The dog's entire being radiated urgency, his instincts honed to a razor's edge. Emma reached a tiny hand toward the door, pointing. Her words had been warnings, signals, and a strange premonition. Sarah realized, with a sudden, gut-wrenching certainty, that the safety she had taken for granted was under threat. The morning sun continued to rise, casting long shadows across the living room floor. Outside, the intruder froze, sensing the tension, but unaware of the child and the dog inside the house. For Sarah, time seemed to slow. The mundane world of coffee cups, blocks, and sunlight had transformed into a scene of suspense and imminent danger. A single decision, a single move, could change everything in the next few minutes. Sarah tightened her grip on Emma, her eyes flicking to Rex. The dog, ever loyal, continued to stand guard, unblinking, unwavering. And Emma, 3 years old but already startlingly perceptive, whispered again, "Help him." Those 2 words, innocent yet profound, marked the beginning of a morning that would forever alter their lives. The quiet street outside Sarah Bennett's house seemed almost normal, bathed in the soft glow of the morning sun. Children played a few houses down, their laughter mingling with the faint hum of passing cars. Yet something in the air made Sarah's stomach twist with unease. Rex, the family's police dog, had not moved from the spot near the front door. His low growl vibrated through the wooden floors, a warning Sarah could no longer ignore. The dog's instincts were rarely wrong, and today every muscle in his body screamed danger. Across the street, a shadow crouched behind a parked sedan. The man's eyes flicked nervously toward the house, scanning windows and doors. He was tall, wiry, and clearly experienced at staying hidden, moving with the precision of someone who had done this before. His gloved hands fiddled with a small device, something electronic, compact, and sinister. He had watched the Bennett house for days, studying routines, noting the patterns of light and movement. Today, he had decided, was the day he would act. Back inside, Sarah held Emma close, pressing a trembling hand to her daughter's back. The 3-year-old's small fingers still clutched a stuffed bunny, her brown eyes wide and unnervingly focused. "Help him," Emma whispered again, voice barely audible but deliberate. Sarah swallowed hard. The words had no clear meaning, but combined with Rex's warning, they formed an undeniable message. Something was approaching, and they needed to be ready. "Stay calm, Emma," Sarah said, trying to steady her own racing heart. She glanced at Rex, who now had his head slightly lowered, muscles taut, eyes fixed on the front door, as if he could see beyond the walls of the house. The dog's behavior was a mix of alertness and defensive readiness, the perfect combination for a canine trained to detect danger. Sarah wished she could understand exactly what he sensed, but instincts were mysterious, even for humans. Outside, the intruder began to inch closer. He moved in short bursts, stopping behind each tree, scanning for witnesses or cameras. His eyes narrowed as he noticed movement inside the Bennett house. A flicker of motion near the living room window made him pause. Had he been seen? His breath quickened under the mask that partially covered his face. He knew he couldn't make a mistake. One wrong move could ruin everything. Inside, Sarah considered her options. She was alone with a toddler and a large, protective dog. She could barricade herself in a bedroom, call 911, and wait, but something told her that time was already a critical factor. Rex barked again, more insistently, moving closer to the door with a deliberate precision that Sarah found both reassuring and frightening. Emma, unusually calm for a child her age, whispered, "Go away." Officer Daniels, Rex's handler, was just finishing a routine patrol when his radio crackled. "Unit 14, report of suspicious person near Maple Street," a dispatcher's voice said. Instantly alert, Daniels recalled Rex's previous behavior in similar situations. The dog had always been a reliable partner, capable of sensing danger before it became visible. He accelerated toward the Bennett residence, eyes scanning the street, heart pounding. As Daniels approached, the intruder froze, his attention drawn to a sudden shift inside the house. He had not expected the dog to react so aggressively, nor had he anticipated the child's apparent awareness. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, but fear and desperation rooted him to the spot. He adjusted the device in his hands, a tool designed for breaking locks or disabling alarms. This would be the last chance before his plans were foiled. Inside, Sarah's mind raced. "Emma, stay close to me," she whispered, though the words felt almost useless against the impending threat. Emma's eyes, however, never left Rex. The child seemed to understand, in a way adults rarely could, the gravity of the moment. Her tiny hand pointed again toward the intruder, and she repeated, "Go away." That simple phrase carried a weight far beyond her years. Rex suddenly shifted position, moving to the front door with deliberate, calculated steps. His body was coiled like a spring, ready to strike at the slightest provocation. Sarah noticed his tail stiffen, ears forward, teeth slightly bared. He was not acting out of aggression, but pure instinct, a mixture of training and natural canine intuition that made him more than just a pet. He was a protector, and he had identified a threat. The intruder took a hesitant step forward. His gloved hand reached for the door handle, but Rex barked sharply, the sound reverberating through the walls. Emma clung to her mother's side, clutching her bunny, eyes wide. "Help him!" She shouted this time, louder, her voice commanding attention despite her small size. It was a cry of warning, a call that merged with the dog's instincts to create a barrier the intruder could not ignore. Officer Daniels arrived just in time to witness the scene. His trained eyes quickly assessed the situation. A suspicious individual poised to commit a crime, a child displaying unusual awareness, and Rex the perfect guardian blocking the threat. "Stay back," Daniels barked, exiting his vehicle with hands raised. The intruder froze, realizing that this was no ordinary house, no ordinary target. The combination of canine instincts, police presence, and even the toddler's awareness had created an almost impenetrable defense. The intruder's hands trembled. He had underestimated the family, underestimated the dog, and certainly underestimated the small child whose simple words seemed to pierce through the ordinary calm of a suburban morning. Panic flickered across his face. He weighed his options: flee, fight, or attempt to force entry. Every instinct screamed that he was outmatched. Inside, Sarah held Emma close, whispering soothing words while her mind raced. She tried to focus on breathing, tried to remember every safety tip she had ever learned. Yet her attention kept flicking to Rex, who continued to growl, his gaze never leaving the intruder. The dog's precision, the child's awareness, and Sarah's protective instincts merged into a tense triangle, a perfect storm of vigilance and courage. The intruder took another tentative step, testing the dog's reaction. Rex barked again, louder this time, a deep, resonant warning that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. Emma's small voice cut through the tension. "Go away." Her words were simple but powerful, and in that moment, Sarah understood that her daughter had somehow sensed the danger. It was almost as if Emma and Rex were communicating silently, sharing a knowledge that adults could not yet comprehend. Minutes stretched, though to Sarah it felt like hours. The shadowed figure hesitated outside the door, calculating, reconsidering every move. Every sound, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic seemed amplified. And then, finally, a realization crossed the intruder's face. He had been detected, his plan compromised. The combination of instinct, intuition, and trained defense had created an impenetrable barrier. As Officer Daniels moved closer, ready to intervene, the intruder's decision became clear. He stepped back, retreating into the shadows, his intentions thwarted for the moment. Sarah's hands shook, her heart still racing, but relief began to seep through the tension. Rex relaxed slightly, his growl fading into low vigilance, while Emma clutched her mother and whispered, "Help him," one last time, as though affirming the victory. Sarah realized that morning that life was fragile, that danger could lurk behind even the most ordinary scenes. And she understood that the combination of a child's intuition and a dog's training had saved them before any harm could occur. The quiet suburban street had revealed its hidden tension, but it also revealed a heroism that could not be measured in size or age. Sarah's hands shook as she held Emma close, feeling the tiny heartbeat of her daughter against her chest. The soft thrum of the morning now seemed distorted, every creak of the floorboards and rustle of leaves outside amplified in her ears. Rex, ever vigilant, remained a rigid sentinel near the front door, growling low and deep. Emma's words, "Help him and go away," repeated softly but with remarkable clarity, echoing in Sarah's mind like a warning siren she could not ignore. This was no ordinary morning, and Sarah knew it. Across the street, the intruder crouched behind a hedge, calculating his next move. He was not careless. Every step had been measured, every breath controlled, but now he sensed the imbalance. The Bennett house was alive with alertness, a combination of instinct and awareness that made him hesitate. His gloved hands twitched as he held the small device meant to disable the lock. He had anticipated a quiet entry, but the child's voice and the dog's growls had shattered the illusion of control. Panic bubbled beneath his calm exterior. Inside, Sarah's mind raced. Her first instinct was to barricade herself in a room, but she realized that action might isolate them further and prevent Rex from doing his job. She glanced down at Emma, whose eyes were fixed intently on the intruder, unwavering despite her young age. "Emma," Sarah whispered, "stay close to me, no matter what." The girl nodded, clutching her stuffed bunny tightly, her small frame shivering, but her focus unwavering. Rex suddenly barked sharply, the sound startling in its ferocity. It was a bark that carried authority, a warning to the intruder that entry would not be simple. Sarah realized something remarkable. The dog wasn't just reacting to movement. He was reading intent. Every subtle motion the intruder made, the slight lift of his hand, the shift of his weight, was catalogued by Rex's instincts. Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the precision, even as fear gnawed at her chest. Officer Daniels, now a few feet away, assessed the scene. He had handled dangerous situations before, but there was something unique about this one. The intruder was visible only in brief glimpses. The toddler's voice cut through the tension, and Rex's behavior was nothing short of extraordinary. Daniels knew the dog could sense imminent danger, often before humans could even comprehend it. He whispered to Rex, "Good boy," though his eyes never left the man outside. Rex's focus was unwavering. The intruder edged forward, testing the boundaries of the front porch. He adjusted his gloved hand on the small device again, preparing to force entry. The dog's growl intensified, muscles tensed, ears pricked forward. Sarah clutched Emma tighter, whispering reassurances that she barely felt herself believing. "Everything's going to be okay," she said, though the words felt fragile. Emma's tiny voice echoed again, "Go away." This time, it carried weight, as though the child's intuition had been sharpened by fear and clarity beyond her years. The intruder's hesitation became evident. He froze mid-step, sensing the dog's intensity and the child's uncanny awareness. It was as if both Rex and Emma were communicating a silent message of warning, a barrier he could not ignore. His pulse quickened. He had assumed the house would be vulnerable, a target easy to manipulate, but the convergence of instinct and intuition had transformed it into an impenetrable fortress. Inside, Sarah considered her next move. Should she call the police again? Could she do something to distract the intruder? Her thoughts raced, but action felt slow under the weight of fear. Then, a realization hit her. Emma had been right. Her daughter's repeated words, "Help him and go away," were not just random utterances, they were warnings, signals of danger that Rex had responded to instinctively. The clarity and courage of a 3-year-old, combined with the loyalty and training of a dog, were creating a defense stronger than any adult could muster alone. The intruder finally attempted to advance, his hand moving toward the door handle. Rex lunged, teeth bared, a formidable wall of fur and muscle. The bark was deafening, echoing through the house and across the street, forcing the intruder to halt. Emma clung to her mother's arm, her tiny body rigid with anticipation. "Help him!" She shouted again, the words almost prophetic, calling attention to the danger before anyone else could act. Sarah felt her throat tighten, realizing how extraordinary it was that a toddler and a dog could be so attuned to the same threat. Officer Daniels moved swiftly, his training kicking in. He positioned himself strategically, calling out commands to the intruder. "Stop, step back." The man froze, clearly realizing he was no longer in control. Panic flickered across his eyes, desperation replacing the cold precision he had carried until now. The combination of human authority, canine instinct, and childlike awareness had created a perfect trap, one he could neither navigate nor escape. Rex continued to advance slightly, maintaining a defensive perimeter, growling, ready to strike if needed. Sarah could see every movement with sharp clarity, noting the intruder's hesitation, the shift of weight, the slight tremble in his fingers. Every detail mattered. Emma, still clutching her bunny, pointed at the man again, repeating, "Go away." This time, her words felt like a command, echoing through the house with power that belied her age. The intruder took a step backward, reconsidering his options. His mind raced. He could flee, but he feared capture. He could attack, but he had underestimated the strength and intelligence of both the dog and the toddler. He could attempt the device again, but the proximity of Officer Daniels and the intensity of Rex's presence made that impossible. The house was no longer an easy target. It was a fortress, guarded by instincts far sharper than his own planning. Inside, Sarah held Emma close, whispering words of comfort. She realized she had underestimated her daughter's perception, and now she understood the depth of Emma's intuition. The toddler's ability to sense danger, combined with Rex's training, was nothing short of remarkable. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude mixed with awe, realizing that instinct, courage, and love had converged in this moment to create an almost impossible defense. Minutes dragged on, the tension stretching, the intruder frozen in place. The neighborhood outside remained largely oblivious, the serene morning hiding the intensity behind closed doors. Every sound inside the Bennett house, Rex's growls, Emma's repeated words, Sarah's whispered reassurances resonated with significance. It was a symphony of defense, an interplay of instincts, courage, and awareness that would soon determine the outcome of this dangerous encounter. Finally, the intruder made a decision. He slowly retreated, stepping back into the shadows, realizing that the house was far from an easy target. His plan was compromised, the moment of opportunity lost. Rex's growls continued, a warning not to test the perimeter, while Officer Daniels moved closer, ready to intervene if the man attempted to return. Emma clung tightly to her mother, her eyes still wide but composed, as if she understood the gravity of what had just occurred. Sarah let out a shaky breath, relief washing over her body in waves. The immediate threat had passed, but the realization remained. A 3-year-old's intuition, combined with the police dog's training, had prevented a potential disaster. It was a lesson in vigilance, courage, and the extraordinary ways that humans and animals could communicate in moments of crisis. For Sarah, the calm of the suburban morning was forever altered. She looked down at Emma, marveling at her daughter's perceptiveness, and then at Rex, whose unwavering loyalty had protected them both. The neighborhood might continue its day, unaware of the drama that had unfolded, but for Sarah, Emma, and Rex, life had been forever changed. And for the intruder, the lesson had been clear. Underestimate this family at your own peril. The intruder hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if weighing whether to abandon the plan entirely. But desperation, not rational thought, drove him. He had spent days preparing, studying the Bennett house, memorizing routines, and calculating an entry that would seem effortless. Now, confronted with a child's awareness, a dog's instinct, and Officer Daniels' presence, he realized he had underestimated everything. Every ounce of confidence dissolved into uncertainty. Inside the house, Sarah tightened her grip on Emma. Her heart pounded, and her mind raced. She could see the tension coiling in Rex's muscles, the rigid readiness in his stance. Every instinct she had screamed that the intruder would act soon. Emma's voice, tiny but piercing, repeated again, "Go away." Her words were not mere childish repetition. They were an alarm, a recognition of danger that adults often overlooked. The shadow outside finally revealed itself fully. The intruder moved toward the front door with a slow, deliberate motion, trying to mask the tremor in his hands. He adjusted the device he had carried, a small tool meant to unlock the door with minimal effort. Years of preparation, every careful calculation, were now being challenged by the unlikeliest of obstacles. A 3-year-old girl and a loyal police dog. Rex barked again, loud and commanding. The sound reverberated through the house, bouncing off walls and echoing into the quiet suburban street. Sarah felt her pulse spike with each bark, knowing that the intruder's hesitation would not last forever. He needed a decision, and whatever he chose would determine the morning's outcome. She held Emma close, whispering reassurances while trying to steady her own shaking hands. "We're okay, baby. We're okay," she murmured, hoping her voice could mask the fear threatening to overtake her. The intruder's eyes flicked toward the window, catching a glimpse of Emma's pointed finger and her wide, unwavering gaze. Her tiny hand directed him with unspoken authority, and the words she repeated over and over, "Go away," felt like a command from a force far stronger than her small size. It was almost uncanny, the way her intuition seemed to guide Rex as well. The dog's eyes never left the man, his body poised to act with precision and power. Officer Daniels had positioned himself near the porch, ready to intervene if necessary. His voice was calm, but firm as he called out to the intruder. "Step back. Do not enter this property." The man froze, but desperation edged his movements. He attempted to take another step forward, hands raised to manipulate the device again. That's when Rex lunged, a blur of muscle and speed, teeth bared but controlled, a clear barrier between intruder and family. Sarah's heart raced as she shielded Emma behind her. The dog's sudden movement sent the intruder stumbling back a few steps, but his resolve hardened. He would not retreat without a fight. He had invested too much, and surrender was not an option. He glanced toward the approaching police car lights Daniels' backup, arriving, but his focus returned immediately to the front door. This was the moment of truth. Enter and risk capture, or retreat and lose everything. Emma's small voice rose again, more insistent this time. "Help him," she shouted. The words pierced through the tension, commanding attention, even as the intruder hesitated. Sarah marveled at her daughter's courage. At 3 years old, she had no real understanding of danger, yet instinctively she had recognized it, and in her own way had begun to act as a sentinel. Rex responded as if understanding every syllable, his body tightening in unison with Emma's warning. The intruder's breath quickened. He could see the dog's sharp teeth, the growl vibrating through the floorboards, and the child's unwavering gaze. Officer Daniels' voice called out again, authoritative and steady, leaving no room for negotiation. Every barrier, every instinct, and every warning combined to form a wall the intruder could not breach. The air crackled with tension, a standoff that could tip toward chaos with a single misstep. Suddenly, the intruder lunged, attempting to force the door open with the device in his hands. Rex reacted instantly, intercepting the motion with a low, resonant bark and a precise maneuver that pushed the intruder back. The sound of the struggle echoed through the house, reverberating across the street and alerting the neighbors. Emma clung tightly to Sarah, eyes wide but unflinching, as if she already knew Rex would succeed. Her repeated cries, "Help him, go away," seemed to channel courage into the dog, reinforcing the protective bond between them. Officer Daniels moved in with swift precision. He grabbed the intruder's arm, pushing him back while shouting commands. The man struggled, but Rex maintained his position, blocking any attempt to advance. Sarah's adrenaline surged. She could feel the energy of the confrontation, the near impossibility of what was unfolding in her living room. Minutes felt like hours as the standoff continued, each side testing the other, yet none daring to yield. Outside, the neighborhood began to stir. A few residents emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion, but the situation remained contained within the property line, thanks to the dog and the officer's control. The intruder's plan was unraveling rapidly. The more he resisted, the more contained he became, every movement monitored by Rex, every action mirrored by the child's awareness. It was as if fate itself had aligned to protect the small family. The intruder attempted one more forceful move, trying to bypass Rex's barrier, but the dog's instincts, coupled with Officer Daniels' training, prevented any breach. The man's frustration escalated. Desperation clouded his judgment. And Emma, observing every movement with uncanny clarity, repeated her warning for the final time. "Go away." The words, simple yet commanding, seemed to solidify the protective force around them, leaving the intruder no choice but to retreat, realizing the futility of his attempt. Finally, the standoff ended. The intruder, defeated by circumstances he had underestimated, backed away into the shadows. Rex's growls softened, but he remained alert, ensuring the threat did not return. Officer Daniels secured the perimeter, speaking to Sarah in calm tones, reassuring her that the immediate danger had passed. Emma clung to her mother, eyes wide but triumphant, understanding in her own way that her warnings had mattered, that she had played a crucial role in keeping them safe. Sarah exhaled shakily, relief mingling with awe. The morning had been ordinary in appearance, but extraordinary in experience. A 3-year-old's intuition, a trained police dog's instincts, and the presence of a vigilant officer had converged to protect her family. The neighborhood's quiet streets, so deceptive in their calm, had become a stage for courage, awareness, and the unspoken understanding between child and canine. As Sarah looked at Emma, she realized that life had changed. The ordinary morning had revealed extraordinary heroism and intuition in the unlikeliest of sources. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispering words of gratitude and pride, while Rex remained at attention, eyes scanning the surroundings. For Sarah, Emma, and Rex, nothing would ever feel entirely ordinary again. The threat had been revealed, but their bond, their instincts, and their courage had proven stronger than any intruder. The tension that had gripped the Bennett home finally reached its peak. The intruder, cornered by circumstance, hesitated outside the door, hands trembling over the small device that had promised him access. Every instinct told him to retreat, yet pride and desperation rooted him in place. Across the porch, Rex's stance was unyielding, a wall of muscle and trained precision, while Officer Daniels stepped forward with calm authority, ready to act at a moment's notice. Sarah held Emma close, feeling the rapid beat of her daughter's tiny heart. The child's hands clutched the stuffed bunny as if it were a shield, eyes wide and unwavering. Despite her youth, Emma's awareness was astonishing. Each movement of the intruder, each shift in weight, was catalogued by her sharp perception. "Help him!" She called out again, her voice stronger than before, cutting through the morning air with surprising authority. Rex responded instantly, moving closer to the intruder, growling low but controlled. He wasn't attacking blindly, his movements were calculated, precise, and protective. Sarah could feel the tension radiating from him, a living warning that any misstep would be met with immediate action. She had relied on Rex's instincts countless times, but never had they felt so intense, so synchronized with the child's warnings. The bond between Emma and the dog was extraordinary, a silent communication bridging human and canine perception. Officer Daniels kept his distance, maintaining a commanding presence. "Step away from the door," he called firmly. "This is your last warning." The intruder froze, clearly realizing that the situation had escalated beyond his control. The quiet suburb, which moments ago seemed so safe, had transformed into a tense arena, the stakes life and death for the family inside. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing through every possible outcome, each one more terrifying than the last. The intruder made a sudden move toward the door. Rex reacted immediately, leaping forward to intercept, his powerful body pressing against the man's chest. The low growl turned into a bark, sharp and commanding, a sound that reverberated through the house and across the street. Emma clung tighter to her mother, whispering, "Go away," the words now an incantation of protection that seemed to guide Rex's actions. The intruder tried to struggle free, but Rex's training held him firm. Officer Daniels closed the distance, grabbing the man's arm and shouting instructions. The intruder's plan unraveled with every passing second. He had underestimated the synergy of dog, child, and officer, a trifecta of awareness, instinct, and authority. Sarah could only watch, awestruck, as the scene unfolded, feeling the weight of danger and the simultaneous relief of protection. Emma's voice rose again, unwavering. "Help him!" she shouted, pointing toward the intruder. The words carried a clarity that was almost supernatural for a child so young. It was as if she could sense the intruder's intentions, his fear, and his hesitation, translating that awareness into a command that only Rex and the adults could interpret. The dog responded without hesitation, circling the man and blocking every possible movement toward the house. The intruder struggled, realizing that force alone would not achieve his objective. He glanced over his shoulder, noticing the flashing lights of approaching backup units and the alert neighbors gathering at a safe distance. Panic surged, clouding his judgment. Every plan he had meticulously crafted now lay in ruins. Rex's presence, Emma's awareness, and Officer Daniels' authority created a barrier he could not penetrate. The realization sank in. He was defeated. Sarah exhaled shakily, feeling a mixture of fear, relief, and awe. The morning that had begun so quietly now brimmed with extraordinary heroism. A dog's training, a toddler's intuition, and a seasoned officer's experience had converged in a perfect storm, protecting a family from harm. She hugged Emma tightly, whispering reassurances, while also acknowledging the incredible role her daughter had played. Without Emma's warnings, Rex might not have anticipated the intruder's precise intentions. Rex's body remained tense, ready for any further threat, but the intruder made no more aggressive moves. Officer Daniels secured the man, handcuffing him and ensuring he could not regain his footing. The police dog stood alert but obedient, acknowledging Daniels' authority while maintaining a protective watch over Sarah and Emma. It was a display of discipline, loyalty, and instinct in perfect harmony. Neighbors who had gathered witnessed the culmination of heroism. Whispers spread quickly. A young child, a police dog, and an officer had thwarted a potential threat. Phones were raised to record, faces were wide-eyed with disbelief, and conversations buzzed with admiration. What had been a normal suburban morning had turned into a story of bravery, awareness, and the extraordinary ways that instinct and courage could manifest. Sarah knelt beside Emma, holding her daughter's hands. "You are amazing," she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. Emma nodded, still clutching her bunny, and whispered once more, "Help him." The simplicity of the phrase belied its importance. In those two words, Emma had conveyed warning, direction, and courage. Sarah marveled at her daughter's ability to sense danger and act with clarity, a gift she had never fully appreciated until now. Rex moved closer, nudging Emma gently with his snout, a silent acknowledgement of her role in the confrontation. The dog's loyalty extended beyond instinct. He recognized bravery, even in someone so small. Sarah reached out to scratch behind Rex's ears, gratitude and pride flooding her simultaneously. Together, they had formed a protective alliance that no intruder could overcome. Officer Daniels, now relaxed but still alert, spoke to Sarah. "You both did wonderfully," he said, nodding toward Rex and Emma. "He underestimated all of you. That's what saved the day." Sarah nodded, realizing the truth in his words. The combination of training, instinct, and intuition had created a force that the intruder could not anticipate. It was not luck, it was heroism in its purest form. As the intruder was led away by backup officers, Sarah finally allowed herself to breathe fully. Relief washed over her, tempered by the lingering adrenaline that made her body tremble. Emma, still clutching her bunny, looked up at Rex with admiration and trust. The bond between them had been solidified, a connection forged in the crucible of danger. It was more than companionship. It was understanding, loyalty, and shared awareness. The street gradually returned to its usual calm. Neighbors resumed their routines, though whispers of the morning's events lingered in the air. Sarah reflected on what had just occurred. A simple Sunday morning had transformed into a testament to courage, instinct, and extraordinary awareness. A dog, a child, and a dedicated officer had combined to prevent what could have been a devastating outcome. Sarah held Emma tightly as the morning sun continued to rise, feeling the weight of what had transpired. The danger was gone, but the lessons remained. Trust in instincts, awareness of surroundings, and courage, even in the smallest among us, could change everything. Rex, vigilant but relaxed, lay down at their feet, a silent guardian. Emma, proud and alert, clutched her bunny tightly, knowing she had played a crucial role. And Sarah, overwhelmed with gratitude and awe, realized that heroism often came in the unlikeliest forms. The sun had climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the quiet suburban street, yet the Bennett home still felt charged with the residual tension of the morning's events. Sarah sat on the living room couch, Emma nestled in her lap, still clutching her stuffed bunny. The adrenaline that had kept them sharp and alert was fading, leaving her body trembling with exhaustion. She gazed down at her daughter, whose eyes, wide and alert, reflected a combination of innocence and remarkable perception. Rex lay at their feet, ears twitching at every distant sound, still fully aware of his surroundings. Though the intruder had been taken away, the dog's protective instincts remained strong. Sarah marveled at his unwavering dedication. The morning had proven, in the most intense way, that Rex was more than a pet. He was a guardian, a silent partner whose instincts could save lives. Officer Daniels knelt nearby, checking Emma and Sarah carefully. "Are you both okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. Sarah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "We are," she said, her voice still shaky. Emma, calm despite the ordeal, clutched Rex's paw with one hand and her bunny with the other. "He's safe," she whispered, referring to the dog, her tiny face serious yet proud. Sarah could barely process the weight of what had just happened. Her 3-year-old daughter had not only sensed danger, but had actively contributed to preventing it. Outside, police vehicles had cordoned off the area. Officers took statements, collected evidence, and spoke to neighbors who had begun to gather, curious about the morning's commotion. The intruder had been restrained and would face questioning for his intentions. Sarah watched the scene unfold, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. In just a few hours, her quiet life had been transformed into a moment of extraordinary drama. The neighbors whispered among themselves, their voices a mix of concern and admiration. Some had witnessed Rex's precise blocking maneuvers. Some had heard Emma's repeated warnings, and others had seen Officer Daniels handle the intruder with calm authority. The story of the morning spread quickly, and soon, what had begun as a private struggle inside the Bennett home became a narrative of heroism and vigilance for the entire neighborhood. Sarah reflected on Emma's role in all of this. At 3 years old, most children couldn't process the dangers around them, let alone act with such awareness. Yet Emma had done both. Her intuition had guided Rex, who responded instinctively, and had even guided Officer Daniels in understanding the seriousness of the threat. Sarah felt awe and gratitude, realizing that bravery didn't always come from adults. It could also come from the smallest among them, guided by pure awareness and love. Rex, meanwhile, remained vigilant, lying near the front door, ears twitching at every sound. Sarah patted him gently, whispering, "Thank you, Rex. You saved us." The dog responded with a soft whine, acknowledging her gratitude, but never letting his guard down. His loyalty, training, and instincts had combined perfectly with Emma's perception to create a protective force that no human alone could have achieved. It was a remarkable testament to teamwork across species, and Sarah could not help but feel that something extraordinary had just unfolded in their home. Officer Daniels stood, observing the neighborhood from the porch. "You did great today," he said to Sarah. "Not just Emma and Rex, but you too. You stayed calm, made smart choices, and protected her. That's what matters." Sarah nodded, still overwhelmed with emotion. She had relied on instincts she didn't know she possessed, trusting her child and her dog in ways she never had before. The day had tested her in ways she could not have imagined. The intruder was now being led to a police vehicle, flanked by backup officers. He cast one last glance at the Bennett home, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. He had underestimated the family, underestimated the dog, and underestimated the tiny child whose repeated warnings had guided Rex and signaled danger before anyone else could recognize it. His plan had failed, not through brute force, but through awareness, intuition, and disciplined protection. Sarah took Emma's hand, guiding her away from the front door. "It's over, baby," she whispered. Emma looked up at her mother with a seriousness that belied her age. "He's gone," she said quietly, her voice carrying relief and certainty. Sarah realized that her daughter understood the danger on a level that was both impressive and humbling. The child's awareness had changed the outcome of the morning, and Sarah could not help but feel deep gratitude for the instinctual wisdom of someone so young. The morning stretched into afternoon. Sarah made a cup of tea, trying to soothe her still shaking nerves. She watched Emma play quietly on the rug, stacking blocks as if nothing had happened. But Sarah knew better. The child's calm demeanor did not erase the extraordinary courage she had shown. And Rex, lying close by, remained alert, ready to react to the faintest hint of danger. It was a rhythm of vigilance and recovery, a delicate balance between relief and ongoing awareness. Officer Daniels remained nearby, speaking with Sarah about the details of the intruder's actions. "He was prepared," Daniels explained, "but he didn't account for instinct and intuition. That's what saved you both." Sarah nodded, absorbing the truth of his words. The morning's events had proven that preparedness alone was insufficient. Courage, perception, and quick thinking were equally vital. She glanced down at Emma, who had now paused her play to stroke Rex's fur gently. By evening, the neighborhood began to settle back into its usual calm. News of the thwarted attempt spread quickly through word of mouth, neighbors expressing admiration and curiosity. Sarah reflected on the extraordinary nature of the morning, realizing that life had shifted in subtle yet profound ways. The events had tested them, but they had also revealed strength, intuition, and loyalty in unexpected forms. Heroism had come in the shape of fur, instincts, and a small child's voice. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lawn, Sarah sat quietly with Emma in her lap. "You were so brave today," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Emma smiled faintly, hugging her stuffed bunny. "I helped him," she said, simple words filled with pride. Sarah nodded, overwhelmed by the depth of understanding in her child. It was a lesson she would carry forever. Bravery does not always come in size, and sometimes the smallest among us can see danger before anyone else. Rex rested his head on Sarah's knee, eyes alert but soft, a silent guardian who had fulfilled his duty with unwavering loyalty. Sarah scratched behind his ears, feeling the warmth of his fur and the strength of his presence. Together, they had survived a morning that could have ended in disaster. And through it all, Emma's intuition had been the guiding light, proving that courage can manifest in the unlikeliest forms, sometimes coming from the innocence of a 3-year-old child. The Bennett family had survived, but more than that, they had grown stronger. Sarah reflected on the bond between her daughter and the dog, realizing it was more than companionship, It was partnership, understanding, and trust. The intruder had been stopped, but the lessons of awareness, instinct, and courage would remain with them forever. The quiet suburban neighborhood had witnessed extraordinary heroism, and the Bennett family had been at its center, forever changed by a morning that had begun as ordinary but ended as unforgettable. Days had passed since the terrifying events on Maple Street, yet the memory of that morning lingered vividly in Sarah Bennett's mind. Every creak of the floorboard, every distant car horn, reminded her of the tension and fear she had felt. But now, as she watched Emma play quietly in the living room, she also felt a profound sense of gratitude and pride. The ordeal had tested them in ways unimaginable. Yet it had also revealed courage, intuition, and the extraordinary bond between her daughter and their police dog, Rex. The community, too, had taken notice. Word of the thwarted attempt spread quickly, neighbors sharing their awe and admiration. Conversations buzzed with stories of the tiny child who had spoken words of warning, and the dog who had responded instinctively. "It's incredible," one neighbor remarked. "A 3-year-old and a dog saved the day." Another added, "I've never seen bravery like that from anyone, let alone a child." Sarah listened, humbled, realizing that the extraordinary courage of her daughter and the loyalty of Rex had touched the entire neighborhood. Officer Daniels visited the Bennett home later that week, bringing with him a sense of reassurance and acknowledgement. He knelt beside Emma, smiling warmly. "You were amazing," he said. "I've been in law enforcement for years, and I've never seen a child so aware of danger. You helped save the day." Emma blushed slightly, hugging her stuffed bunny tighter. "I helped him," she said quietly, her voice steady and proud. Daniels nodded, a mixture of admiration and seriousness in his eyes. "Yes, you did," he said. "And Rex did too. The two of you made an incredible team." Sarah felt tears welling up as she watched the exchange. Her daughter, so small yet so perceptive, had faced a level of danger that most adults would struggle to comprehend. And Rex, ever vigilant, had acted on instinct, understanding Emma's warnings in a way that seemed almost supernatural. Together, they had formed a protective alliance, a silent communication that had prevented disaster. Sarah realized that the morning had tested her in unimaginable ways, but it had also revealed the remarkable strength within her family. The local news soon picked up the story. Reporters interviewed Sarah, Officer Daniels, and even neighbors who had witnessed glimpses of the morning's events. Headlines highlighted Emma's bravery, Rex's loyalty, and the officer's skillful handling of the intruder. "Toddler's intuition and police dog thwart attempted break-in," read one article. Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how quickly the story had spread, yet she also felt a sense of pride. Their courage had inspired others, showing that awareness, instinct, and bravery could come from the unlikeliest sources. Community leaders arranged a small recognition ceremony at the local park. Emma received a certificate of bravery, decorated with colorful stars, while Rex was awarded a medal for his service and loyalty. Sarah held her daughter close as Officer Daniels pinned the medal to Rex's collar, both of them smiling proudly. "You two were remarkable," Daniels said. "The way you communicated, the way you protected each other, it's something that doesn't happen every day." Emma beamed, patting Rex gently on the head. Her tiny hand lingered over his fur, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared. Even the intruder's attempted actions had inadvertently highlighted the strength of ordinary families when faced with extraordinary circumstances. Sarah realized that heroism did not always come from official titles or physical strength. Sometimes it came from awareness, intuition, and the willingness to act in the face of danger. Emma had demonstrated courage beyond her years, and Rex had shown loyalty and skill that could rival any trained officer. Together, they had created a force that no intruder could overcome. As the days passed Sarah reflected on the changes within her household. Emma seemed more aware, more confident, as if the events had shaped her perception of the world in subtle ways. She still played with her toys, still laughed and sang, but there was a quiet strength in her demeanor. Rex, too, had adapted, his protective instincts heightened but balanced by calmness within the safe walls of home. Sarah realized that life would never return entirely to what it had been. The morning had left its mark, not as trauma, but as a testament to courage, awareness, and familial bonds. Officer Daniels visited occasionally, checking in on the family and providing reassurance. He brought small gifts for Emma and treats for Rex, acknowledging their extraordinary role in the events. "It's important to remember," he said one afternoon, "that bravery comes in many forms. Yours is just one example, but it reminds us all to pay attention, to trust instincts, and to act when necessary." Sarah nodded, grateful for his words, recognizing the profound truth in them. Emma looked up at him, wide-eyed, and whispered, "We helped him," a phrase that had become a mantra of courage and awareness. Neighbors continued to show their support. Baked goods were left on porches. Friendly greetings lingered longer. And children who had once played quietly now ran past the Bennett home, shouting, "You're heroes." Sarah felt a mixture of embarrassment and pride at the attention, but mostly she felt gratitude. The morning's events had strengthened the bonds within her family and extended outward, touching everyone in their community. It was a reminder that courage, when visible, could inspire and protect more than just those directly involved. One evening, as the sun set, Sarah sat on the porch with Emma and Rex. The world outside seemed calm, peaceful, yet the memory of the intruder lingered in the back of her mind. She knew they had been fortunate, but she also knew that awareness, preparation, and the trust between her daughter and their dog had made all the difference. Emma rested her head against Sarah's shoulder, eyes reflecting the fading sunlight, while Rex lay alert at their feet, ears twitching at the slightest sound. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a pause to honor what had transpired. Sarah thought about the lessons learned. Courage came in unexpected forms. Awareness could be sharper than experience, and loyalty could transcend words. Emma had shown bravery beyond her years. Rex had demonstrated unparalleled instinct, and together they had created a shield no intruder could pierce. Officer Daniels had reminded them that preparedness was not just about training or skill. It was about recognizing potential danger and responding decisively. For Sarah, these lessons were not abstract. They were lived, tangible, and deeply personal. That night, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, she whispered softly, "You were amazing today. You and Rex saved us." Emma hugged her bunny and smiled, a mixture of pride and calm innocence. "I helped him," she said one last time before closing her eyes. Sarah turned to look at Rex, lying near the doorway, eyes alert even in the dim light. "We did," she whispered, acknowledging the team they had become. Mother, daughter, and dog. Together, they had faced danger, prevailed, and emerged stronger. The events on Maple Street would remain in their memories forever, a story of courage, awareness, and the extraordinary power of instinct. For Sarah, Emma, and Rex, life had shifted subtly yet profoundly. The neighborhood knew their story. Officer Daniels had recognized their bravery, and the family had grown closer than ever before. Heroism had come in unexpected forms, showing that even the smallest voice, guided by intuition and loyalty, could change the course of a day and perhaps a lifetime. The first light of dawn crept over the Bennett household, casting soft rays through the curtains. The quiet of the morning felt different now, no longer ordinary, but layered with meaning. Sarah Bennett sat at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee, while Emma played on the floor, quietly stacking her blocks. Rex lay nearby, ever watchful, ears twitching at the distant sounds of birds and neighborhood activity. The events of the past week had transformed their home, infusing it with a new sense of vigilance, gratitude, and understanding. Sarah's mind drifted back to that terrifying morning. The memory of the intruder, the sharp urgency in Emma's voice, and Rex's protective instincts played in vivid detail. Yet, alongside the fear, she also remembered the courage, clarity, and extraordinary teamwork that had protected them. It was astonishing how a 3-year-old's intuition, coupled with a trained police dog and a vigilant officer, had changed the course of events. Sarah felt a swell of pride for Emma, for Rex, and for herself, for the calm decisiveness she had found in a moment of crisis. Emma glanced up, her face bright with curiosity. "Mom, can Rex come outside today?" she asked, pointing toward the yard. Sarah smiled, grateful for the ordinary request, for the reminder that life, even after chaos, could return to gentle rhythms. "Of course, sweetie," she said. "He's been on guard all morning. He deserves a break." Rex perked up at the mention of going outside, wagging his tail slowly, a subtle acknowledgement of the bond he shared with both mother and child. As the trio stepped into the yard, the morning sun highlighted the familiar details of their home. The flowers Sarah had planted in the spring, the swing set Emma loved, and the gentle rustling of trees swaying in the breeze. Yet everything felt imbued with significance. Each detail, once ordinary, now represented the backdrop to courage, vigilance, and survival. Sarah realized that their perception of the world had subtly shifted. They were more aware, more alert, but also more grateful for the ordinary beauty surrounding them. The neighborhood, too, had absorbed the story of their ordeal. Across the street, neighbors waved warmly as Sarah and Emma played fetch with Rex. Their smiles were genuine, laced with admiration and relief. "You 3 are incredible," one neighbor called. Sarah waved back, feeling a warmth she hadn't expected. The morning's events had rippled outward, creating a sense of community vigilance and shared respect. Heroism, she realized, did not exist in isolation. It inspired, influenced, and united people around it. Officer Daniels returned later that afternoon, visiting with a small gift bag for Emma and a treat for Rex. "Just a little something for the heroes," he said, smiling. Emma's eyes lit up, and she hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Sarah smiled, recognizing that Daniels had not only protected them during the threat, but had become a steadying presence afterward, reinforcing the lessons of vigilance, calm, and courage. His visits were a reminder that bravery was both action and support, and that heroes often worked in tandem rather than alone. Over the following days, Sarah reflected on the changes within herself and Emma. The child's confidence had grown noticeably, her small voice now carrying a subtle assurance beyond her years. She laughed freely, but observed her surroundings with careful attention. Sarah understood that Emma's awareness had been a gift in the moment of danger, but now it had also become a skill, a quiet vigilance that would shape her perspective for years to come. And Rex, loyal and vigilant, remained the silent guardian, his presence a constant reassurance and a lesson in trust, loyalty, and instinctual courage. The family decided to commemorate the events in a small, personal way. They created a scrapbook documenting the ordeal, capturing photographs of Emma, Rex, and Officer Daniels, alongside newspaper clippings and notes about the intruder's thwarted attempts. Sarah wrote down Emma's words, the repeated phrases, "help him," and "go away," alongside Rex's actions that had protected them all. It was a record not of fear, but of courage, awareness, and the extraordinary ways ordinary lives could intersect with heroism. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of gold and orange, Sarah, Emma, and Rex sat on the porch, reflecting quietly. The neighborhood was calm. Children played in the distance, and the faint sound of traffic created a serene background. Sarah spoke softly. "You know, Emma, what you did was incredible. You helped protect all of us. Emma smiled, hugging her bunny. I just wanted to help, she said. The simplicity of her words struck Sarah deeply. Heroism, she realized, often comes from the simplest acts, the most genuine intentions. Rex rested his head on Emma's lap, eyes half closed but attentive. Sarah reached down to scratch behind his ears, feeling the warmth and strength of his fur beneath her fingers. Together, they represented a balance of instincts, courage, and love. Sarah realized that the morning's events had not only changed their lives, they had created a new rhythm, a partnership that transcended ordinary relationships. Emma had learned courage, Rex had demonstrated loyalty, and Sarah had discovered resilience she hadn't fully acknowledged before. News outlets revisited the story, interviewing Sarah and Officer Daniels once more. Emma sat quietly beside her mother, occasionally glancing at Rex, who sat loyally at her side. The public was captivated, inspired by the unlikely heroes, a toddler, a police dog, and a mother who stayed calm under pressure. People shared the story widely, celebrating the extraordinary courage that had emerged from a seemingly ordinary family in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The recognition brought a mixture of humility and pride, reinforcing the idea that bravery often manifests where it is least expected. Months passed, but the lessons endured. Sarah noticed subtle changes in Emma's behavior, heightened awareness, a calm confidence, and an ability to recognize danger in ways that were remarkable for her age. Rex continued his vigilant routines, yet allowed moments of rest and play, teaching Emma the rhythm of awareness balanced with calm. Sarah realized that the morning had created lasting bonds, not only between family members, but between humans and animals, a testament to the power of connection, instinct, and courage. One afternoon, as Sarah watched Emma run across the yard laughing, Rex bounding after her, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had survived, yes, but they had also grown stronger, wiser, and closer. The morning of fear and tension had transformed into a lifetime of lessons, a story of courage and loyalty that would be remembered, shared, and honored. And most importantly, it had reinforced a profound truth. Heroism does not always come in grand gestures. It can come in the smallest voice, the keenest instincts, and the unwavering loyalty of a friend, human or canine. As night fell, Sarah tucked Emma into bed, gently brushing her hair and whispering words of reassurance. "We're safe now," she said softly. Emma hugged her bunny, smiling. "We helped him, didn't we?" Sarah kissed her forehead, overwhelmed by emotion. "Yes, baby. You helped him, and you helped all of us." Rex settled near the doorway, eyes scanning for the faintest sound, but calm in the knowledge that the family was safe. The morning of fear had passed, but the lessons of courage, vigilance, and love would endure forever. Outside, the neighborhood remained quiet under the stars, unaware of the extraordinary events that had unfolded weeks ago. Yet within the Bennett home, life carried on, forever shaped by a morning that had begun ordinary but ended with remarkable heroism. Sarah, Emma, and Rex had faced danger, acted with courage, and emerged stronger, united, and more aware than ever before. And in the quiet of the night, the bond between mother, daughter, and dog remained unbreakable, a testament to instinct, love, and the enduring power of heroism in its purest forms.